Now available for the first time on Google Play, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are falling apart in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy on Google Play today.
You often hear many leftist politicians proposing universal basic income. And according to these leftists, universal basic income would provide people with a basic income to take care of their basic needs. However, when many of these leftists talk about universal basic income, it's often from a gynocentric perspective, and they make the face of universal basic income single mothers or mothers who have an extremely low income. Now, I find this whole framing of the narrative to be one that isn't constructive, because we have a large population of underemployed, unemployed, and homeless men out here, and I would think that they would be the ones who would benefit the most from universal basic income. But your leftist politicians and those who support universal basic income won't go out here and frame their argument around all of the men out here, because they don't really want to see men rise up as related to economics, and that is one of the reasons why they won't propose universal basic income as a way to support America's struggling men. Now, here in America, we have a large homeless population, and a good 90% of that homeless population are men. Either these were men who were laid off their job in the last 2 to 3 recessions, or they were veterans who served this country and did not get any support for their service. Or they were men who were out here who lost everything due to divorce. And here in America, instead of us going out here and working to try to help get these men back on their feet, we have people going out here pushing gynocentric narratives as related to this universal basic income. Now, in my book, The Man Crisis, I stated that one of the solutions for solving the man crisis here in America was to make an investment in America's men. And I would think that universal basic income would be a better investment in our men. Unfortunately, many of these politicians and supporters of universal basic income still want to frame their narratives around women, and that is to the detriment of the country. Now, we have millions of homeless men out here who would definitely benefit from having a universal basic income, and those men would really deserve to get that kind of income, because I know that any sort of income can lead to a man starting to work towards getting back on his feet, because men are natural builders, and as natural builders, if you give men a basic resource, men will turn that basic resource into something tangible. Now, I remember when I came out of AmeriCorps and I had wound up running out of money, one of my family members gave me $60 a month. And I used that $60 a month to get a haircut and basically try to be able to feed myself and be able to go out here and look for work. And I used that money towards paying for a civil service test to get myself another job. And that's the kind of thing that a man would do if you gave him a universal basic income. If you took a minute to invest in a man who is struggling, what that man will do is he will use that universal basic income as a tool to get himself back up on his feet. And that is something I believe that the leftist does not want to see America's men go out here and do, and that's why they focus the universal basic income projects around women, because they know that women are not builders. No, women are consumers, And because a woman is a consumer, what she will do when she gets this money is she will not use it as a tool to lift herself out of poverty. No, she will use it as an opportunity to buy items that will allow her to have social currency and allow her to become more popular in social circles. This whole quest for social currency is one of the reasons why when you give women money, they go out here and will buy a Gucci bag or a Fendi bag or some Manolo Blahnik or some Jimmy Choo shoes, even though her address is in the projects. But if you gave that same money to a critical thinking man, $1,000 a month, what he's going to do is start using that money and make an investment in himself. And when he starts to make that investment in himself, what he's going to do is he's going to start laying out a plan for what he wants to do in his life, and he's going to start going out here and spending money on resources towards getting himself to move ahead towards whatever goal he has planned. So if you give a man $1,000 a month, he is not going to run to the store to go get himself some Gucci bags or some Air Jordan sneakers. No, he is going to go out here and work on a goal of getting himself either another job, some job training, or he's going to work towards starting a business for himself. And this is one of the reasons why many on the left don't want to give a man universal basic income, because he will start working towards turning that universal basic income into a tangible stream of income, and he will go out here and start building tangible wealth. And that runs counter to what the leftist wants to see people do with universal basic income. And what they want to do is get people, especially women, dependent on this income so that they can have leverage over that woman and be able to control that woman through her dependence on the money. So a lot of these leftists, they'll sit there and talk about, oh, how they want to use universal basic income to help people out of poverty. But when you start coming from a gynocentric perspective and only talk about investing in women, clearly we see that you're full of crap, because if you really want to lift people out of poverty, you invest in America's men and you help America's men get back up on their feet so that they can build a better America. Because when you invest in America's men, they are going to go out here and they're going to have the resources to go out here and build. And when you have men who have the resources to go out here and build, what they are going to do is start making those power moves towards moving themselves forward. But many on the left really don't want to see men get any sort of economic power, because they know that if you give a man economic power, he's going to work towards his own interdependence. And when he works towards his interdependence, he's eventually going to get to a point where he no longer needs to depend on you. And what he's going to do is, after he gets himself established, he's going to become his own power base. And what they fear is that once that man starts to rise to a position of power, what that man is going to do is he's going to start pushing back against them. When you give women money, they don't push back. No, they submit and comply. But when you give a man money and power, he then uses it to empower himself. And then once he empowers himself, he then starts to have a voice, and then he can speak against you or push back against you. And that is this thing that many who propose universal basic income truly fear about giving men money. They fear that once men get economic power, they will empower themselves, and then eventually these men will start working towards establishing a political base of power, And this is one of the reasons why you never really hear anybody who proposes your universal basic income or universal basic income programs ever talking about giving universal basic income to any of our homeless veterans, any of our homeless men, or any of our underemployed or unemployed men like myself. They fear giving men like me and many others out here that opportunity because they really are disingenuous about trying to break the cycle of poverty, because what they really want to do is foster a codependent relationship where they can use this money to have power over people, similar to what the nice guy does when he has stuff. He wants to use that to try to control the person. But if they were really genuine about your universal basic income, again, you would be trying to invest in America's men and helping those men get back up on their feet so that they can go out here and get themselves together. Now, I know that some would say, oh, investing in men is really American, but investing in America's men is an investment in America, because the faster you get a man back on his feet, the faster he becomes a taxpayer, and the faster he becomes someone who can contribute to society, and it's faster for him to get back and become help America become a stronger nation. So when you invest in the man, you get a better outcome than investing in the woman, because we invested in women for over 50 years in the war on poverty that established the welfare state, and all we got out of that war on poverty was 2 to 3 generations of single mothers who have practically not gone out here and made any significant contribution towards helping the country grow. So we have people who came up with welfare doing the same thing with universal basic income, and you're destined to get the same outcome, because the whole thing is that when you invest in women, they are a money pit, and every dollar you spend on a woman is another $1,000 that you have to spend. But every dollar you spend on a man who is allowed to get himself together is going to profit you in the long term, and it's going to profit the nation in the long term, because competition is a good thing. And when people compete, we get the best out of everyone. And that is something the universal basic income people don't want pushed, especially as related to the community of black men, because to see a community of heterosexual black men rise and be built up on a concept like a universal basic income, and then go and graduate from the basic income to creating their own revenue streams and income platforms, that is something that many of the white supremacists out here don't want to see. And it's not something that they would want to see, because they know that they could not compete in a fair and open marketplace, and it would burn them to the core, knowing that they created this whole economic base out of their own concepts, and that black people used it to empower themselves. But I also look at the whole universal basic income argument, and why they won't invest in men is because you have a large population of black men who are homeless, and to give those black men that kind of money, that is another reason why the leftist gets upset, because he doesn't like the idea of seeing a black man have that kind of economic power. And I guarantee you, if you started talking about giving heterosexual black men a universal basic income of $1,000 a month, that's when you would start to see a lot of these leftists lose it and talk about how a black man needs to get a job and how lazy he is, and start mirroring the same points as the white supremacist. And that's another reason why we don't hear them talking about universal basic income and making the black man the face of it, because they really hate black men, and they hate the idea of a black man having economic power. They hate the idea of a black man having any sort of money, and that's why they'll push universal basic income to black women and make black women the face of universal basic income, because they want to foster that codependent relationship with that black woman so that she'll continue sending the flow of dollars to your white businesses like your designer shoes and handbags, your Arab-owned grocery stores, your Korean hair and nail salons, your Hispanic-run bodegas, your white supermarkets, and your Indian-owned fast food franchises. That's where they want all the money to flow. But they know if you give this black man some money, a lot of brothers out here, they are going to go out here and really start getting serious, because $1,000 a month is just the start towards getting back on your feet. And once that black man gets on his feet, they fear that he'll start running. And that's the thing that many white supremacists fear, is competing with that black man. And that's why they would rather have black men be a part of a shelter system rather than give him the universal basic income that will allow him to start laying the foundation towards moving into the middle class. So when I look at the whole universal basic income argument, I find it very odd that America's men are not a part of this narrative, but I understand why they don't want America's men to be a part of that narrative, because they really don't want to invest in that man, because to invest in America's men means that you're going to invest in somebody who eventually will rise to the point where they get power, and they'll use that power to push back against your initiatives, and they'll push against your ideals and your ideology. So that's why they don't want to invest in America's men, even though America's men would benefit the most as related to universal basic income. And giving a man a universal basic income would be one of the things to end the man crisis here in America. And it would be one of the ways we would help a lot of America's men who are struggling out here, the unemployed, the underemployed, and the homeless, finally start making those steps towards moving their life to a more positive direction. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint that relate to men's issues like the man crisis, Stop Simping in the Workplace, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, and Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and Kindle, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females like Instagram models and e-girls in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Get your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace in paperback and Kindle today.